Jake Morrison felt his stomach drop as the spaceship came out of light speed. Through the small window, he could see a planet covered in purple clouds and silver cities. This was Kepler 442b, the neutral world where he would meet aliens for the first time. "You okay there, Jake?" Lisa Carter asked from the seat next to him. She had been his friend for 10 years and was now his mission coordinator. Her job was to help him stay safe during this important meeting. "Just nervous," Jake said, wiping sweat from his hands. At 32 years old, he had studied alien life forms for most of his career, but he had never actually met one. "Commander." Ryan Torres walked over to them. He was a big man with serious eyes. "We land in 20 minutes. Remember, Jake, you're not just representing yourself. You're representing all of Earth." Jake nodded. The weight of that responsibility felt heavy on his shoulders. Humans had only learned to travel faster than light 2 years ago. Now they were making contact with the Vorthak Empire, a group of aliens who controlled 12 star systems. The ship shook as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Jake looked out the window again and saw buildings that seemed to grow from the ground like trees. Everything was smooth and curved, nothing like the sharp edges of human cities. "The Vorthak have been waiting for us," Lisa said, reading from her tablet. "Their Queen Zixaria will meet with you personally. That's very unusual. Most alien rulers send their assistants to meet with new species." "Why is it unusual?" Jake asked. "Because the Vorthak are very formal. They have strict rules about who can meet who. For their queen to meet you directly means something important." The ship landed with a soft bump. Jake took a deep breath and stood up. He wore his best diplomatic uniform and carried a briefcase with gifts from Earth. The plan was simple: make friends with the aliens and set up trade agreements. The ship's door opened, and Jake stepped outside. The air was warm and smelled like flowers he didn't recognize. The ground beneath his feet was not dirt or stone, but something soft and purple that glowed slightly. "Welcome, human Jake Morrison." Jake turned toward the voice and almost fell over. Standing before him was Queen Zixaria herself. She looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a person. She was 8 feet tall with 4 arms and large, dark eyes. Her skin was pale green and seemed to shimmer in the light. She wore what looked like living metal that moved and flowed around her body. "Your Majesty," Jake said, bowing the way Lisa had taught him. "I am honored to meet you. Please walk with me," the Queen said. Her voice was musical, almost like singing. "I have been looking forward to this meeting for a long time." They walked through gardens filled with plants that Jake had never seen before. Some flowers followed them with their heads like they were watching. Trees had leaves that changed colors as they passed underneath. "Your world is beautiful," Jake said. "Thank you. We Vorthak believe in living with nature, not against it." "Tell me, Jake Morrison, what do you think of when you look at the stars?" The question surprised him. "I think about what else might be out there, about how small we are compared to the universe." Queen Zixaria stopped walking and looked at him with her large eyes. "Interesting. Most species think about conquest when they first reach the stars. Humans used to think that way too," Jake admitted. "But we've learned that cooperation works better than fighting." They reached a large building that seemed to be carved from a single piece of crystal. Inside, the walls glowed with soft blue light. Jake was amazed by everything he saw. The technology was far beyond anything humans had. "How long has your people had space travel?" Jake asked. The Queen paused for just a moment. "A very long time," she said finally. "Much longer than your people." Jake noticed that she didn't give him a real answer. He made a mental note to ask about it later. They entered a dining hall where the table was set with dishes Jake didn't recognize. The Queen gestured for him to sit. 4 other Vorthak joined them, but they stayed quiet and let their queen do all the talking. "Tell me about human culture," Queen Zixaria said as they began to eat. The food tasted strange but good. Jake spent the next hour talking about Earth. He told her about human art, music, and literature. He explained how humans had learned to work together despite their differences. The Queen listened carefully to every word. "Your people sound remarkable," she said when he finished. more remarkable than you might know." "What do you mean by that?" Jake asked. Again, the Queen paused. "I simply mean that humans have achieved much in a short time." Jake felt like she was avoiding his question. Throughout the dinner, he noticed other strange things. When he asked about Vorthak history, she changed the subject. When he mentioned human achievements, she seemed to know more about them than she should. After dinner, the Queen showed him to his rooms. The walls were covered with screens showing images of space and distant stars. "Rest well, Jake Morrison," she said. "Tomorrow I will show you more of our world." As she turned to leave, Jake saw something that made him freeze. On one of the screens, he saw an image that looked exactly like the Statue of Liberty. But that was impossible. The Vorthak had never been to Earth. "Your Majesty," he called out, but she was already gone. Jake stared at the screen. The image changed to show other things he recognized: the Great Wall of China, the pyramids of Egypt, Machu Picchu. How did aliens on the other side of the galaxy have pictures of Earth's most famous landmarks? He tried to sleep, but questions kept running through his mind. Why had the Queen agreed to meet him personally? Why did she seem to know so much about humans? And why did he feel like she was hiding something important from him? Tomorrow he would find answers. He had to. Outside his window, strange alien stars shined down on a world full of secrets. Jake Morrison had come here to make first contact with aliens, but he was beginning to think that maybe this wasn't first contact at all. Jake woke up early the next morning with more questions than answers. The images of Earth he had seen on the screen bothered him all night. He got dressed and waited for Queen Zixaria to arrive. When she came, she brought another Vorthak with her. This one was smaller and moved differently. "This is my advisor, Thexkar," the Queen said. "He has served my family for many years." Thexkar bowed to Jake. "It is good to meet the human," he said. His voice was deeper than the Queen's, and less musical. They walked through different parts of the Vorthak city. Jake saw amazing things everywhere: cars that floated through the air, buildings that cleaned themselves, machines that seemed to think on their own. "How did your people learn to build all this?" Jake asked. Queen Zixaria and Thexkar looked at each other quickly. "We have always been good at making things," she said. Jake knew that wasn't a real answer. Every species had to learn and grow. Nothing came from nowhere. They visited a museum filled with artifacts from across the galaxy. Jake saw items from dozens of different alien species, but in one corner behind a rope, he saw something that made his heart race. It was a section full of human items, but not modern human items. These looked ancient. There were tools, weapons, and art that looked like they came from early human history. Some of them looked even older than that. "Where did you get these?" Jake asked, pointing at the human artifacts. The Queen looked uncomfortable. "Through trade, of course. We have traded with many species over the years. But humans have only had space travel for 2 years," Jake said. "How could you have traded with us before that?" "Perhaps they came through other traders," Thexkar said quickly. "Items sometimes pass through many hands before reaching us." Jake didn't believe that explanation either. The items looked too old and too well preserved to have traveled through space for centuries. That afternoon, Lisa Carter arrived on a transport ship. She was excited to see the Vorthak technology, but Jake pulled her aside to talk privately. "Something strange is going on here," he told her. "The Queen keeps avoiding my questions, and they have human artifacts that should be impossible for them to have." "What kind of artifacts?" Lisa asked. Jake showed her pictures he had taken with his phone. Lisa's eyes grew wide as she looked at them. "Jake, some of these look like they're thousands of years old, but the preservation is perfect. It's like they were kept in a museum the whole time." "That's what I thought too." Lisa was quiet for a moment. "I need to call Dr. Amy Rodriguez. She's a historian who specializes in ancient human cultures. If anyone can make sense of this, it's her." That evening, Jake had dinner with Queen Zixaria again. This time, Thexkar stayed close to them. Jake decided to ask direct questions. "Your Majesty, how long have the Vorthak known about humans?" The Queen set down her eating utensil. Why do you ask such questions, Jake Morrison? Because I'm curious. And because I think you know more about my people than you're telling me. Queen. Zixaria was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "We have observed many species throughout the galaxy, some from a distance." How distant? Very distant. Jake felt frustrated. Every answer led to more questions. Why won't you give me straight answers? The Queen looked sad for a moment. Because some truths are harder to bear than others. After dinner, Thexkar followed Jake back to his rooms. When they were alone, the alien advisor looked around carefully, then spoke in a whisper. "Human Jake Morrison, I must speak with you secretly." Jake was surprised. "Why secretly?" "Because my queen forbids it, but I think you deserve to know some things." "What things?" Thexkar moved closer. "We have been watching your species for much longer than she admits. Not just watching from space. We have had people on your world." Jake's heart started beating faster. "People on Earth? When?" "For centuries, maybe longer. We have records of your people going back to when you first learned to make fire." "That's impossible," Jake said. "Why would you watch us for so long?" "I cannot tell you everything, but I can tell you this. Your species is more important than you know. More important than any other species we have met." Before Jake could ask more questions, Thexkar heard footsteps in the hallway. "I must go," he whispered. "But tomorrow, when the Queen shows you the restricted areas, pay attention to what she doesn't show you." The next day, Dr. Amy Rodriguez arrived from Earth. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had studied ancient human history for 40 years. Jake showed her the artifacts in the museum. Her reaction was even stronger than Lisa's had been. "This is incredible," she said, examining the items carefully. "Some of these are from civilizations that we thought were myths. And look at this preservation. It's like they were stored in perfect conditions for thousands of years." "But how did aliens get them?" Jake asked. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." Dr. Rodriguez spent the day studying the artifacts while Jake toured more of the Vorthak city with Queen Zixaria. Everywhere they went, the Queen was treated with great respect. But Jake noticed something else. Other Vorthak looked at him with curiosity and something that might have been fear. "Why do your people look at me like that?" he asked. "Like what?" "Like I'm dangerous, or important, or both." Queen Zixaria stopped walking. "You are important, Jake Morrison. More important than you understand." "Then tell me why." The Queen looked around to make sure no one could hear them. "Your species has a destiny," she said quietly. "A destiny that affects the entire galaxy." "What kind of destiny?" But before she could answer, her communicator made a noise. She listened to the message, and her expression changed. "What's wrong?" Jake asked. "There has been an incident in the restricted archives. Someone has been trying to access files that are forbidden." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had a feeling that Dr. Rodriguez had found something she wasn't supposed to find. They hurried back to the palace where they found Dr. Rodriguez waiting with Lisa and Commander Torres. The historian looked pale and shaken. "Jake," she said quietly, "we need to talk. All of us." Queen Zixaria stepped forward. "Dr. Rodriguez, I hope you understand that some information is restricted for good reasons." "I understand," Dr. Rodriguez said. "But I also understand what I saw in those files. Jake, they have records of humans dating back 50,000 years, detailed records, genetic information, family trees that go back to the beginning of human history." Jake felt the world spinning around him. "That's not possible." "It's not just possible," Dr. Rodriguez continued. "It's true. And there's more. Jake, according to their files, humans didn't evolve naturally on Earth." Queen Zixaria closed her eyes. "You should not have seen those files." "But I did," Dr. Rodriguez said. "And now I need to know the truth. Where did humans really come from?" The Queen looked at Jake with her large, dark eyes. For the first time since he had met her, she looked scared. "The truth," she said slowly, "is more dangerous than you can imagine." Jake stared at Queen Zixaria. The silence in the room felt heavy and dangerous. Dr. Rodriguez had found files about humans that went back 50,000 years. Files that said humans didn't evolve naturally on Earth. "I think we need some answers," Commander Torres said. His hand moved toward his weapon, but Jake held up a hand to stop him. "Please," Jake said to the Queen. "Just tell us the truth. We can handle it." Queen Zixaria looked at each of them. Finally, she made a decision. "Follow me. But know that once you learn this truth, your lives will never be the same." She led them through hallways Jake had never seen before. The walls here were older and covered with symbols that hurt his eyes to look at. The air felt different too, heavier somehow. "Where are we going?" Lisa asked nervously. "To see something my people have guarded for thousands of years," the Queen replied. They went downstairs, that seemed to go deep underground. The technology here was different from what Jake had seen before. It was more advanced but also somehow ancient. They reached a massive door made of metal that seemed to move like liquid. Queen Zixaria placed her hand on it, and it opened with a sound like singing. Inside was a room filled with screens and machines, but in the center was something that made Jake's blood turn cold. It was a large chamber filled with what looked like DNA samples. Thousands of them. "What is this place?" Dr. Rodriguez whispered. "This is where we keep the genetic records of every species in the galaxy," Queen Zixaria said. "But the human section is special. It's much larger than it should be for a species that's only existed for a few 100,000 years." Jake walked over to the human section. There were samples labeled with dates going back millions of years. But that was impossible. Humans hadn't existed millions of years ago. "I don't understand," he said. "The truth is this," Queen Zixaria said. "Humans are not originally from Earth. Your species comes from a much older civilization, a civilization that once ruled the entire galaxy." The room spun around Jake. "That's impossible." "Is it?" "Think about it, Jake Morrison. Your species learned to travel between stars in just a few hundred years after learning to fly. You went from horses to spaceships faster than any species in recorded history. Does that seem natural to you?" Dr. Rodriguez was studying the screens. "The genetic data here shows connections between humans and dozens of other species. But the connections are old, really old. Because your ancestors helped create many of the species in this galaxy," the Queen said, "including mine." Jake felt like he couldn't breathe. "You're saying humans created aliens?" "Not modern humans. Ancient humans. A civilization so advanced that they could seed life across the galaxy. They were called the Builders." Lisa was taking notes on her tablet, her hands shaking. "But what happened to them? If they were so advanced, where did they go?" Queen Zixaria's expression became sad. "They were destroyed. All of them. By something so terrible that they couldn't fight it, even with all their technology." "What destroyed them?" Jake asked. "I cannot tell you that yet, but before they died, they made sure their genetic legacy would survive. They planted their DNA in primitive species on thousands of worlds. On Earth, they chose early humans and gave them the potential to rebuild what was lost." Commander Torres stepped forward. "Are you telling us that Earth humans are descendants of this ancient civilization?" "Not descendants," the Queen corrected. "You are them, just starting over from the beginning." Jake sat down heavily on a nearby chair. The weight of this information felt crushing. "Why are you telling us this now?" "Because your species is growing, strong again, and because the danger that destroyed the Builders is coming back." "What danger?" Dr. Rodriguez demanded. But before Queen Zixaria could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, and the screens showed emergency warnings in Vorthak writing. Thexkar ran into the room. "My Queen, we have a problem. The Separatists have learned that you brought the humans here. They are coming." "Who are the Separatists?" Jake asked. "Vorthak, who believe we should not help humans," the Queen explained quickly. "They think your species is too dangerous to be allowed to grow strong again." "Too dangerous?" Lisa asked. "We're just trying to make friends with aliens." "You don't understand," said a new voice from the doorway. Another Vorthak entered, but this one was different, younger with anger in her large eyes. I am Nyxera, daughter of Queen Zixaria, and I believe the Separatists are right. Queen Zixaria looked shocked. Daughter, you should not be here. I should be wherever humans are discussed. Nyxera said coldly. Because I will be queen someday and I refuse to honor the oath that has bound our people for so long. What oath? Jake asked. Nyxera laughed bitterly. The oath to protect humanity, to guide them, to sacrifice our own progress so that they can reclaim their birthright as rulers of the galaxy. Jake felt sick. We don't want to rule anyone. Maybe you don't, Nyxera said. But your ancestors did. They ruled everyone, and they were destroyed because of their arrogance. What makes you think modern humans will be any different? The alarms got louder. Through the windows, Jake could see Vorthak ships approaching. But these ships looked different, darker and more aggressive. We need to leave, Commander Torres said. Now. Queen Zixaria moved to a control panel. I am sealing this chamber. The information here is too important to fall into the wrong hands. What about us? Lisa asked. You must return to your ship and leave this world immediately, the Queen said. It is no longer safe for humans here. But Jake didn't move. I'm not leaving without answers. You said the danger that destroyed the builders is coming back. What? Danger? Queen Zixaria looked at her daughter, then back at Jake. It's called the cycle. Every million years something sweeps through the galaxy and destroys all advanced civilizations. The builders learned about it too late to save themselves. And you think it's coming again? Dr. Rodriguez asked. I don't think it. I know it. Our sensors have detected the early signs. The cycle will begin again in less than 50 years. Jake felt cold all over. 50 years, that's not enough time for humanity to prepare. Not unless you reclaim your full heritage, Queen Zixaria said. The builders left behind technology and knowledge that could save not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy. But only humans can access it. The building shook as explosions went off nearby. The Separatist ships had started attacking. We have to go, Torres said again. But as they ran toward the exit, Jake saw something that made him stop. On one of the screens was a map of the galaxy showing the location of dozens of hidden builder sites. Sites that contained the technology humanity would need to fight the cycle. The map, he shouted to the Queen. How do we find those places? Queen. Zixaria was already at the door, but she turned back. The locations are coded into human DNA, specifically into the DNA of humans who carry the strongest builder genetic markers. Which humans? Jake demanded. The Queen looked directly at him. You, Jake Morrison. The markers are in you. Before Jake could respond, the ceiling above them started to collapse. The Separatists had found their location and were trying to destroy the chamber. Run! Thexkar shouted. They ran through corridors that were falling apart around them. Jake's mind was spinning with everything he had learned. He was a descendant of ancient galactic rulers. There was a force that destroyed civilizations every million years. And somehow, the locations of ancient technology were coded into his DNA. They reached their ship just as more Separatist vessels arrived. Commander Torres got them into the air quickly, but Jake could see explosions lighting up the Vorthak city below. Are you okay? Lisa asked as they escaped into space. Jake looked, back at the planet they were leaving behind. Queen Zixaria was still down there, probably fighting her own people to protect the secret she had shared with him. No, he said quietly. I'm not okay, and I don't think I'll ever be okay again. Because now he knew the truth. Humanity wasn't just another species learning to explore space. They were the inheritors of a galactic empire, and the responsibility for saving all life in the galaxy might rest on their shoulders. The weight of that knowledge felt heavier than any burden he had ever imagined. The flight back to Earth took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time staring out the window at the stars, thinking about everything Queen Zixaria had told him. His DNA contained the locations of ancient builder sites. Humanity was supposed to save the galaxy from something called the cycle. It all seemed impossible. You've been quiet, Lisa said, sitting down next to him on the second day. Wouldn't you be quiet too? Jake replied. Everything I thought I knew about humans is wrong. Dr. Rodriguez came over with her tablet. She had been studying the genetic data they had managed to copy before escaping. Jake, I've been analyzing your DNA sample. The Queen was right. There are markers in your genes that don't match normal human patterns. What kind of markers? Sequences that look like they contain information. Not biological information, but actual data. Like someone wrote a computer program into your DNA. Jake felt a chill. Can you decode it? I'm trying, but it's incredibly complex. We might need builder technology to read it properly. Commander Torres joined them. Speaking of builder technology, Earth's government is very interested in what we found. They want us to return to that planet and get more information. That's not going to be easy, Jake said. The Separatists were trying to kill us, and Queen Zixaria might not be able to protect us anymore. Maybe not, Torres said. But President Maria Santos thinks this is too important to ignore. She's sending Dr. Ben Clark to meet us. He's the best xenoarchaeologist we have. When they reached Earth, Jake was surprised to find that news of their discovery had already spread through the government. He was taken to a secure facility where dozens of scientists were waiting to study the data they had brought back. Dr. Clark was a tall man with excited eyes. This is incredible, he said after reviewing their findings. An ancient human civilization that ruled the galaxy? Technology hidden in human DNA? It's like something from a science fiction story. It's not fiction, Jake said tiredly. And now we have less than 50 years before something called the cycle destroys every advanced species in the galaxy. About that, Dr. Rodriguez said, I've been researching historical records. There are patterns in Earth's past that might be connected to this cycle, mass extinctions that happen roughly every million years, events that wipe out advanced species and reset evolution. Dr. Clark leaned forward. You think the cycle has affected Earth before? I think the cycle is why the builders put their genetic legacy on Earth, Dr. Rodriguez said. They knew Earth was far enough away from the galactic center to survive the destruction. Jake felt overwhelmed by all this information. So what do we do now? President Santos answered that question when she arrived at the facility. She was a strong woman who had led Earth through its first contact with aliens. We're going to find those builder sites, she said simply. If there's technology that can save the galaxy, we need to have it. But we don't even know where the sites are, Jake protested. Actually, we might, Dr. Rodriguez said. She showed them her latest analysis. I've been working with computer experts to decode the markers in your DNA. We've found what looks like star charts. She displayed a holographic map of the galaxy. Dozens of points were marked in red. These locations match systems that have unusual energy readings, Dr. Clark said. Places where our long-range sensors detect technology signatures that don't match any known species. Jake studied the map. One of the locations was relatively close to Earth. How long would it take to reach this one? About 2 weeks, Commander, Torres said. It's in an empty system that we thought was just dead planets. President Santos made her decision. We're sending a team there immediately. Jake, you'll lead the mission since your DNA might be needed to access the builder technology. 3 days later, Jake found himself on a new ship with Dr. Clark and a team of scientists. But as they prepared to leave Earth, they received an unexpected message. It was from Queen Zixaria. She had survived the attack from the Separatists and was asking for a meeting. I must speak with Jake Morrison, her message said. There are things about the builders that I have not told him. Important things. Jake wanted to ignore the message. The Queen had already lied to him by hiding the truth for so long, but something in her voice made him change his mind. They met at a space station halfway between Earth and Vorthak territory. Queen Zixaria came alone except for Thek's car. She looked tired and sad. The Separatists have taken control of several Vorthak worlds, she said without greeting. Many of my people believe that helping humans will bring disaster to the galaxy. Maybe they're right, Jake said angrily. Maybe humans are too dangerous. No, the Queen said firmly. The danger is not from humans. The danger is from ignoring what the builders learned before they died. She activated a holographic display. It showed images that made Jake's stomach turn. Dead worlds, empty cities, entire star systems that had been stripped of all life. This is what the cycle does, she said. It doesn't just destroy civilizations, it harvests them. It takes all their knowledge, all their technology, all their biological uniqueness, and adds it to itself. Dr. Clark was recording everything. You're saying the cycle is alive? Not alive in the way we understand life, Queen Zixaria explained. But it learns and grows with each civilization it destroys. It's been doing this for billions of years, becoming more powerful each time. Jake felt sick. And the builders fought this thing? They tried. But they made the mistake of fighting it directly. The cycle absorbed their technology and became even stronger. That's when they realized the truth. What truth? Jake asked. The cycle can only be stopped by a species that refuses to be absorbed. A species that destroys itself rather than let the cycle take its knowledge. The room became very quiet. Jake understood what she was saying. The builder's plan wasn't for humans to fight the cycle. It was for humans to make sure the cycle gains nothing when it comes. Exactly. But there's more. The Queen changed the display to show technical diagrams. The builders created something, before they died, a weapon that can destroy the cycle permanently. But using it requires a terrible sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? The species that uses the weapon will be destroyed along with the cycle. Complete extinction in exchange for saving all other life in the galaxy. Jake sat down heavily. You're asking humanity to commit suicide to save everyone else. I'm not asking anything, Queen Zixaria said. I'm telling you what the builders intended. The choice is yours to make. Dr. Clark was studying the technical diagrams. These plans, they're incredibly advanced. We'd need builder technology just to understand how to build this weapon. Which brings us to why I contacted you, the Queen said. I know where the builders hid their most important technology. Not the locations in your DNA. Those are just research stations. I know where they hid their central command facility. She showed them a new star chart. The location was far from Earth in a region of space that looked empty. It's called the Nexus. Everything the builders knew about the cycle is stored there, including the complete plans for their ultimate weapon. Jake looked at the star chart, then at Queen Zixaria. Why didn't you tell me about this before? Because I hoped there might be another way. But our time is running out. The cycle will arrive in 48 years, not 50. My people's sensors have detected its approach. 48 years, Jake repeated. That's barely enough time for humanity to understand the technology, let alone build a weapon with it. Which is why you must start immediately, the Queen said, and why I'm offering to help you. Your own people are trying to stop you from helping humans, Jake pointed out. Then I will fight my own people if necessary, she replied. The oath my ancestors made was not just to protect humanity. It was to protect all life in the galaxy. I will not break that oath. Jake looked around the room at his team. They all looked as overwhelmed as he felt. The weight of deciding the fate of every species in the galaxy was crushing. I need to talk to Earth's government, he said finally. Of course, Queen Zixaria said. But do not take too long to decide. The cycle doesn't wait for anyone. As Jake prepared to return to Earth with this new information, he realized that Queen Zixaria had been right about one thing. The truth was more dangerous than he could have imagined. Because now he understood why she had tried to hide it from him for so long. The truth was that humanity might have to die to save the galaxy, and somehow, that choice was going to fall on people like him to make. The stars outside the space station looked different now, not like distant points of light, but like worlds full of people who were counting on humanity to save them, even if those people didn't know it yet. Jake returned to Earth with the heaviest heart he had ever carried. The knowledge that humanity might need to sacrifice itself to save the galaxy felt like a crushing weight on his chest. He had to tell President Santos and Earth's leaders about the Nexus and the builder weapon, but he didn't know how to find the right words. The meeting took place in the most secure room in the government building. President Santos was there, along with Admiral John Murphy, who had just been put in charge of Earth's new Galactic Defense Force. Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Clark were also present, their faces serious. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," President Santos said after Jake finished his report. "The Builders created a weapon that can destroy the cycle, but using it will destroy humanity as well." "That's what Queen Zixaria believes," Jake said. "She says it's what the Builders intended, from the beginning." Admiral Murphy leaned forward. "And we have 48 years before this cycle arrives?" "Less now," Jake replied. "Every day we delay is a day we lose." Dr. Rodriguez had been quiet during the meeting, but now she spoke up. "There might be another option. What if we don't tell the general population about the sacrifice part? We focus on finding the Builder technology and learning how to use it. Maybe we'll discover an alternative." "You want to lie to 7 billion people?" Jake asked. "I want to give them hope while we figure out if there's another way," she replied. President Santos was quiet for a long time, thinking. Finally, she made her decision. "We're going to the Nexus. We're going to learn everything we can about Builder technology, but we're not going to make any decisions about weapons or sacrifices until we know all our options." "And the public?" Admiral Murphy asked. "We tell them the truth about humanity's history and about the cycle, but we don't mention the weapon or the sacrifice, not yet." 3 weeks later, Jake found himself on a ship heading toward the Nexus with the largest scientific team Earth had ever assembled. Queen Zixaria had insisted on coming with them despite the danger from her own separatists. "My people are in civil war," she told Jake as they traveled. "Half want to help humanity, half want to stop us from reaching the Nexus. But I believe this mission is too important to abandon." The Nexus turned out to be hidden inside what looked like an empty star system. But when their ship entered the area, Jake's DNA markers began to react. The ship's computers detected massive energy signatures that had been invisible from far away. "There," Dr. Clark said, pointing at the main screen. "That's not a planet. It's artificial." The Nexus was a sphere the size of Earth's moon, covered in a metal that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. As they approached, the surface opened up to reveal a docking bay that perfectly fit their ship. "It knew we were coming," Jake said in amazement. They walked through corridors that were clearly built for humans, but humans who were much more advanced than anyone alive today. The walls were covered with displays showing information in languages Jake couldn't read but somehow understood. In the center of the Nexus, they found what they were looking for. A massive chamber filled with the accumulated knowledge of the Builder civilization. Screens showed star charts, technical specifications, and historical records going back millions of years. But in the very center was something that made Jake's blood run cold. It was a perfect holographic representation of the cycle. The thing was enormous, larger than star systems. It looked like a cross between a machine and a living creature, with tentacles that reached across space to drain entire worlds of life and knowledge. "Dear God," Admiral Murphy whispered. A voice spoke from hidden speakers throughout the chamber. It was speaking in Builder language, but Jake could understand every word. "Welcome, children of the Builders," the voice said. "I am the collective, the combined consciousness of our civilization. You have come seeking knowledge of the cycle." "Yes," Jake said to the air. "We need to know how to stop it." The hologram changed to show the Builder homeworld in its final days. Jake watched in horror as the cycle consumed everything. People, cities, entire continents disappeared into the creature's massive form. "We tried to fight," the collective explained. "We built weapons that could destroy stars. We created shields that could protect whole systems. Nothing worked. The cycle absorbed our technology and became stronger." "But you created a weapon that can destroy it," Queen Zixaria said. "Yes. But the cost?" The display changed again. This time it showed technical plans for a device that Jake's enhanced understanding told him could unravel the very fabric of space and time in a localized area. "This weapon works by creating a space-time paradox," the collective explained. It makes the cycle's existence impossible by changing the fundamental laws of physics around it. But the energy required can only come from the complete conversion of an intelligent species life force. Dr. Clark was frantically taking notes. Is there any other way to power it? We searched for alternatives for 1,000 years, the collective said sadly. There is no other source of energy pure and organized enough to fuel the weapon. Jake felt sick. So humanity has to die to save everyone else. That was our intention when we seeded your species, the collective admitted. We hoped that when the time came, you would make the choice to sacrifice yourselves for the greater good. The chamber fell silent. Jake looked around at his team, at Queen Zixaria, at all the accumulated knowledge of a dead civilization. The weight of the decision felt impossible to bear. But then Dr. Rodriguez spoke up. What if we don't accept that choice? What do you mean? Jake asked. What if we refuse to use the weapon? What if we find another way to fight the cycle? The collective's voice became sad. Then the cycle will consume this galaxy, as it has consumed countless others. All life will end, and the cycle will move on to the next galaxy to repeat the process. But what if we're stronger than the builders were? Admiral Murphy asked. What if humanity can succeed where they failed? The display changed to show Earth and all the worlds humans had begun to explore. Your species has potential we did not foresee, the collective admitted. You have something we lost long ago. What's that? Jake asked. Hope, and the willingness to fight impossible odds. Queen Zixaria stepped forward. The Vorthak will stand with humanity, whatever you decide. My people swore an oath to protect you, and we will honor it. Jake looked around the chamber one more time. The weight of the galaxy's fate rested on decisions that would be made in the next few years. But for the first time since learning about the cycle, he felt something other than despair. He felt determination. We're not going to use your weapon, he said to the collective. We're going to find another way. And if you fail, then we'll fail fighting, not surrendering. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, Jake worked with the team to understand as much builder technology as possible. They couldn't take the weapon plans, but they could take defensive technologies and knowledge about the cycle itself. When they arrived on Earth, President Santos was waiting with news. The discovery of humanity's true heritage had been announced to the world. The reaction was mixed. Some people were excited, others were scared, many were confused. How did they take the news about the cycle? Jake asked. Better than expected, the president replied. Humanity has always been at its best when facing extinction. People are already volunteering for the defense projects. Over the next months, Earth transformed. Factories began producing builder technology. Scientists worked around the clock to understand devices that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Military leaders planned defenses for not just Earth but for every inhabited world in the galaxy. Queen Zixaria established a permanent embassy on Earth and worked to convince other alien species to join the alliance. Some agreed, others refused, to believe the threat was real. But slowly, a galactic coalition began to form. Jake found himself at the center of it all. His DNA markers allowed him to interface with builder technology in ways no one else could. He became humanity's primary link to their ancient heritage. But late at night, when he was alone, he sometimes wondered if they were making the right choice. The builders had been more advanced than humanity could imagine, and they had failed. What made humans think they could succeed? The answer came to him one evening as he stood on Earth looking up at the stars. Queen Zixaria joined him, her alien form familiar and comforting now. Do you ever regret not using the weapon? She asked. Jake was quiet for a moment. No, because I finally understand why you concealed the truth from me for so long. Oh, you weren't trying to protect me from the knowledge. You were protecting me from despair. You knew that if I learned about the weapon first, I might give up hope. Queen Zixaria nodded. My people have watched humanity for so long. We know your greatest strength is not your technology or your intelligence. It's your refusal to accept defeat. Jake smiled. The builders were probably smarter than us, They were definitely more advanced, but they gave up and chose suicide rather than keep fighting. And humans? Humans are too stubborn to quit, even when we should. 47 years remained until the cycle arrived. It wasn't much time to prepare for a threat that had destroyed countless civilizations. But as Jake looked up at the stars, he felt something the builders had lost in their final days. He felt hope. Because Queen